A few months ago, I built my first deep sky astrophotography rig, capable of imaging star clusters, nebulas, and galaxies in the night sky. Now it's time to take my images to the next level and escape my light-polluted skies by traveling over 100 miles south into West Virginia, with one goal in mind: to take my best and most detailed astrophotos ever. If everything goes according to plan, it'll be one epic night of astrophotography under some of the darkest skies in the country. I am about to drive over 100 miles south for a night of astrophotography and camping from Calhoun County Park, West Virginia, which is really one of the darkest locations that you'll find in this part of the country. I'll be imaging as soon as it gets dark until the moon begins to rise at about 3 in the morning. That gives me about 8 hours of imaging time tonight, and I'll be splitting that among 2 different targets. The first is a fascinating region of nebulosity in the Orion constellation, and the other is a famous pair of galaxies. I'll talk a little bit more about what I'm shooting tonight when I get down to West Virginia, but for now it's time for me to finish packing everything up and get on the road. Once I arrive at Calhoun County Park, I set up my tent, which is my home for the night. My imaging setup is the one I debuted in my last video, the Star Adventurer GTI mount and the Red Cat 51, which is my wide-field refractor telescope. The sun has set, and now I have to wait for it to get darker. Calhoun County Park really is just an incredible location. I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that nights like these, from locations like these, really are every astrophotographer's dream. So I can't wait for it to get dark and to get imaging. As it gets dark, the stars come out, and it truly is an amazing view. My first target of the night is the Horsehead and the Flame nebulas. It's a beautiful region of dust, gas, and star formation in the Orion constellation. The Horsehead Nebula really is such an interesting region of space, and I'm so excited to be imaging it for the first time. So I've come in the tent for a moment, and we'll take a look at one of my first 3-minute sub-exposures. So you're looking at a single 3-minute shot of the Horsehead and Flame Nebula right now, and it's really just unbelievable how much detail there is just in this one 3-minute shot. I can't wait to see what the final image looks like after I get about 3 hours worth of exposures. It really is just an incredible view. I'm keeping an eye on how the imaging is going, but I'm spending a lot of time just looking up at the night sky, and it really is just unbelievable how many stars there are. It's hard to put into words just how filled the sky is with stars from horizon to horizon. I can even see the winter Milky Way. It's not as prominent as it is in the summer when the core of our galaxy is high overhead, but is definitely visible from these dark skies. As the night progresses, the Orion constellation sets, and it's time to switch to my second target of the night. We're going roughly 12 million light-years away, in the constellation Ursa Major, to a famous pair of galaxies not far from the Big Dipper. It is Bode's Galaxy and the Cigar Galaxy, also known as M81 and M82. Okay, so here comes my first 3-minute exposure of M81 and M82. Wow, take a look at that. On the top you can see the larger galaxy, M81. It's a spiral galaxy, like our own Milky Way. And on the bottom is the smaller M82. Take a look at the odd shape of M82. It's believed that the gravitational forces of the nearby M81 is what's causing the shape of the galaxy to be deformed. Just like with the Horsehead Nebula, I'm absolutely blown away with how much detail I can see in just a single 3-minute exposure. I am going for 2 to 3 hours worth of exposure time on these galaxies, just like I did with the Horsehead Nebula. After I finish photographing these galaxies, it's time to zip up the tent and call it a night. Well, good morning. What a night it was. Just looking at the 3-minute exposures I was taking, I think the data last night really does look great. It's time to pack everything up, head back to Pennsylvania, and I will see you when we will take a look at what I got. It really was just an incredible night. You were watching along with me as I got back those first 3-minute sub exposures, and when I saw just how much detail there was in that single 3-minute shot, I knew I was in for a special night. It's hard to overstate just how much easier astrophotography is from a dark sky location like Calhoun County Park. Even from a visual observing perspective, a night under dark skies is just an awesome experience. If you've never been to proper dark skies before, one thing you'll notice is that there are actually so many stars in the sky that it becomes difficult to recognize the constellations. I've lived my whole life with the bright constellations like the Big Dipper and Orion being very prominent and easy to spot. But when you're underneath dark skies, there are just so many stars in and around those constellations that it becomes hard to identify them. The time lapse you were looking at really doesn't do these dark skies justice. However, one thing I think will show you just how dark and pristine this location was the final images I got in the end. Here is my final image of the Horsehead Nebula and the Flame Nebula. The Flame Nebula, with its yellow-orange color and the dust lanes running through it, really does resemble a flame. It's definitely one of those nebulas that closely resembles its namesake. In the middle of the image, we have the Horsehead Nebula. The red region behind the Horsehead is actually its own nebula altogether, and the Horsehead is a special type of nebula called a dark nebula, because we're actually looking at its shadow or silhouette. And so the challenge when photographing it is, can you pull out enough of that red light to reveal the structure of the Horsehead itself? That's not easy to do from a light-polluted sky. From skies as dark as Calhoun County Park, it really helps bring out more of that red light, and in turn, reveal the Horsehead Nebula in all of its detail. I think this is such an interesting and complex region of space, with 3 different nebulas coming together. There really is just so much happening in a single shot. This is definitely the favorite nebula photo that I've ever taken. Now let's take a look at my final image of M81 and M82, Bode's Galaxy and the Cigar Galaxy. These two galaxies are about 12 million light years away from us here on Earth. You might be wondering how it's possible for a telescope as small as this to photograph something that is over 10 million light years away. The reason is that a lot of these objects I can photograph in the night sky are much larger than you might think. For example, the Andromeda Galaxy is about 6 times as wide as the full moon in the sky. And you could fit several full moons within the Horsehead and Flame region we just looked at. Bode's galaxy seen here is over half the width of the full moon in the sky. So even more distant galaxies like these can still be revealed by a telescope as small as mine. My Redcat 51 really is one of the smallest telescopes on the market. I'm really happy with how much detail I was able to reveal from these two galaxies. M81 is a spiral galaxy, and when you zoom in on it, you really can see its spiral structure and the spiral arms coming out of the core of the galaxy. There is something, however, in this image that I think is just as interesting as these two galaxies themselves. I'm talking about what's in the background of the image. And no, I'm not talking about the stars that you see. They're actually in the foreground because they're all within our own Milky Way galaxy. A lot of these objects in the background are actually their own galaxies altogether. And you can see this when you zoom in and take a closer look. They are really far away, and so they appear quite small in this image. But these are actually their own galaxies, their own worlds altogether, just like our own Milky Way. I've done some research on some of these distant galaxies in the background, and I found that some of them are over 200 million light years away. That really shows you just how unbelievably large galaxies are. Even ones that are over 200 million light years away still appear large enough to be picked up by my small refractor telescope. This galaxy in particular is over 200 million light years away, which means it has taken the light 200 million years to reach us here on Earth. That means that we're not looking at it as it appears right now in the present, but actually how it looked when the dinosaurs were roaming the Earth. I knew that these more distant galaxies were out there. I didn't expect to reveal so many of them with such a small telescope. I really think that these galaxies add a whole other element to this image. I think it's safe to say that these two pictures are the best astrophotos I've ever taken, and to capture them on the same night from an amazing location really made the trip to West Virginia well worth it for me. I hope you liked these images and that you enjoyed coming along to West Virginia with me. If you liked what you saw, please subscribe to the channel because there are more videos on the way. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, clear skies.